Hi everyone, my name is Mazila Md-Yusuf. I'm an associate professor at the Shah Graduate Business School, Universiti Teknologi Shah, Malaysia, and my co-writer is Muhammad Sharil Mazin, a lecturer at the Faculty of Business Management and Professional Studies, Management and Science University, Shah Alam, Malaysia. Our paper is Causality Effects of Macroeconomic Variables with Conventional and Islamic Interbank Money Market Rates in Malaysia. So this is our presentation outline. Okay, the money market is a financial market platform for money market players to transact short-term instruments which have maturity tenure ranging from overnight to 12 months. In general, money market can be divided into two categories, the ordinary money market and the interbank money market. What is interbank money market rate? Interbank money market rate refer to the rate of return charged on short-term loans between banks. Banks borrow and lend money to one another in order to manage their liquidity management and also to meet the reserve requirements set by the central banks. The money market in Malaysia is divided into two categories, namely the conventional money market and also the Islamic money market. For the ordinary market, meaning that for the banks and their customers, whereas in Malaysia we also have the Islamic interbank money market and also the conventional interbank money market, mainly for the banks to transact with one another. Okay, in their study, Manap and Kasim 208 had observed two interesting scenarios. First, there seems to be relatively more volatile movement in the conventional interbank rate in the early 2000s period, and also in recent years the Islamic interbank money market rate seemed to be leading those of the conventional interbank money market rate. And according to Banagara, the trading of interbank money market funds volume had also increased tremendously over the years, and the daily rate fluctuation is more stable and competitive with a range of 2.5% to 3.5% in the recent years. This shows that the two markets are really competitive, and it also shows that the Islamic interbank money market rate is relatively becoming more and more trusted and accepted by the financial markets. So it seems that there is some factor that affect the interbank money market rate. So, is there any causality effects of macroeconomic factors on the interbank money market rates in Malaysia? And if the macroeconomic factors do have the causality effects with the interbank rates, from which direction is the causality effect flow? So, there is a gap in this study, in this area, and especially in Malaysia. So, that motivates us to do this study. Our research objective is to investigate the causality effects of macroeconomic variables with the conventional interbank money market rate and also the Islamic interbank money market rates. We have three parties that would benefit from the research: the Malaysia policymakers in helping them to come up with the appropriate policy to be used in the interbank money market; for financial institutions, for them to use the result of the research to effectively plan their strategy for their liquidity management, as well as for their risk mitigation during the economic crisis, and also for academicians and future researchers to help them to determine the variables and also the estimation for their own study. So let's first look at some theory regarding the macroeconomic variables with the interbank money market rate vis-a-vis the interest rate. Yeah. So the relationship between interest rate and the interbank rate is said to be having bidirectional or feedback interaction. The same thing with the money supply, inflation rate, economic growth, the stock market, and also the exchange rate. And these are some of the past studies that show the causality of the macroeconomic variables with the interbank money market rate. Okay, so some studies shows bidirectional, some shows unidirectional, yeah, and also there's no causality in fact, yeah. What is the methodology? So we use the Granger causality test and we apply the multivariate VAR model to determine the causality effect between the macroeconomic variables and also the interbank money market rates. So this is the variables and the proxy. So our dependent variable is the interbank money market rate. For the conventional, we use the CLIBOR rate. For the Islamic Interbank, we use the Kuala Lumpur Islamic reference rate. And for the loan rate, we should refer to the interest rate for the conventional bank and profit rate for the Islamic bank. And we have the money supply, the inflation rate, the economic growth. For the economic growth, we use the IPI instead of the GDP because our data is monthly data. And for the stock market, we use the, for conventional, we use the FTSE, Bursa Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur Composite Index, and the Islamic, we use the FTSE, Bursa Malaysia Hijrah Sharia Index. For the exchange rate, we use the real exchange rate, ringgit Malaysia per US dollar instead of the nominal exchange rate because the period of study for the conventional banks, yeah, is between January 01 to December 2016, whereby the period from January 01 until July 05, the period, the exchange rate in Malaysia at that time was pegged against the US dollar. So that is why we cannot use the nominal, but rather we have to use the real exchange rate. And then the sources of the data, that is where we obtain them. And we have two hypotheses. One for A is for the conventional and B for the Islamic interbank money market rate. The null is the no causality effects, and of course the alternate is there is causality effect between macroeconomic factors with loan rate, money supply, inflation, economic growth, stock market and exchange rate with the interbank money market, conventional as well as Islamic. Findings, we look at the characteristic of the data, yeah, by doing the descriptive statistics. And the result, yeah, now before we look at the or run, yeah, the Granger causality, we did several econometric testing such as the unit root, normality, multicollinearity testing, and we corrected, yeah, all the problem that we found. And for the multicollinearity issue, we have to drop the stock market, yeah, from the conventional interbank data set, but we maintain the money supply, yeah, due to the higher multicollinearity issue or problem, yeah. Okay, for the conventional interbank Granger causality effect, yeah, according to the result, the conventional interbank, that is the CLIBOR, and interest rate has bidirectional causal relationship. This means that the conventional interbank rate, Granger cost interest rate, and at the same time, interest rate, Granger cost the conventional interbank rate. The result found no interaction between the conventional interbank rate with other macroeconomic variables, meaning that there is no causality effect running either direction between the conventional interbank rate with money supply, inflation, economic growth, or exchange rate. Could be concluded that the interest rate is the only causality factor to the changes in the conventional interbank rate. And in addition, we found that there is Granger causality effect running among the interest rate, money supply, inflation rate, economic growth, and exchange rate. We found unidirectional Granger causality running from money supply, inflation, and economic growth to interest rate. And this result is consistent with the macroeconomic theories that stated that interest rate fluctuation is affected by the amount of money supply, fluctuation in inflation rate, and also the economic growth. The result also found unidirectional Granger causality effect running from money supply to exchange rate, inflation rate to the economic growth and the exchange rate. So this implies that the amount of money circulating in Malaysia economy affecting inflation rate, while inflation rate fluctuation will lead to the fluctuation of the economic growth and the ringgit value. For the Islamic Interbank money market data set, we found that there is a unidirectional Granger causality effect running from the Islamic Interbank money market rate to the profit rate. This means that the Islamic Interbank money rate Granger cost the profit rate. Okay, the result is different from the conventional interbank money market rate. Yeah, and we found unidirectional interaction also between the Islamic interbank rate and the inflation rate running from inflation rate to the Islamic interbank rate. This implies that inflation rate fluctuation Granger caused the fluctuation in the Islamic interbank rate. There is also interaction between the Islamic interbank rate and the stock market running from stock market to the Islamic interbank rate, meaning that the changes in the Islamic interbank rate Granger caused by the changes in the stock market performance. There was no interaction at all running from both sides in the case of the Islamic interbank money market rate with economic growth and also exchange rate. Okay. Okay, in conclusion, the outcome of this study are unique in which this particular study investigates the causality effect of macroeconomic factors with the conventional and Islamic interbank money market in Malaysia. Especially, we found that there was bidirectional interaction between interest rate and the conventional interbank money market rate, but unidirectional interaction with the Islamic interbank money market rate. Yeah, so the causality effects between the interest rate and the profit rate and the interbank rates are considered as an important addition to the existing body of knowledge in this area, particularly in Malaysia scenarios. So we hope that this study fill up the gap in this particular area, and we also hope that the result would be useful by the to the policymakers in drawing out their policy to be used in the interbank money market and for financial institutions to decide on the instruments to be used in managing their liquidity requirements. For academicians and future researchers, we hope that this study would be their basis of reference in terms of determining the variables and estimation methods for their own research. So thank you for listening and viewing my presentation.